Let's invite our speakers, Mr. Prashant Deshpande, CISO and CDO, Shriram Finance Limited, Mr. Girish Dixit, CISO, Kotak Securities, and Mr. Sangram Gayal, partner, PwC. Would you want to put your hands together for them? With this, I'd like to leave it to the expertise of our speakers.
Thank you so much. So we've got eminent friends Girish and Prashant here with me, and it's a very interesting topic because every time a new technology comes up, the bad guys are first to adopt it. I mean, it's generally faster than the good guys can adopt it, right? Especially when it comes to technologies which have a destructive potential. And maybe all technologies have some destructive potential, and that's the way maybe the game is played. So, so many, you have seen use cases from scammers using AI to generate phishing emails which are better than a human can write. I mean, that's a classic use case. People are talking about deep fakes which are being created by which, you're making calls, you're getting calls for wishing, fraudulent calls which are coming. And this is creating a different kind of environment on what to trust, right? And really the question today for us is, one, is human intelligence enough to tackle this? Or are we actually outclassed or out-intelligenced, I don't know if that is even a word, by AI, and some of these mails, deepfakes and so on. The second question that we need to also answer is, we are using AI so much into our business. And, can this AI be outclassed by attackers to act against us? So we are using AI to actually deliver benefits to our clients, to our organizations. So is that vulnerable? Is that something that that we need to really relook at, have guardrails around those? So maybe let's start with that topic first. And Prashant, I mean, you're not only a CISO, you're also a CDO, and which is a very interesting combination. So maybe we'll start with, how are you using AI in your organization in terms of, delivering value, in terms of, the use cases? Maybe you want to talk a little bit about what are the key use cases that you're looking at currently and in the near future for your organization?
From the business point of view.
From a business point of view. Let's start with business first.
Thanks. Good morning and welcome all. So, as he rightly mentioned, okay, we being NBFC, there is, we always say that there is a fintech disruption has happened, okay? Bank has always been seen traditionally as a trust factor, okay? But then there was a segment in the society where, bank were not serving them. So then the NBFC came in the picture and they went with as a credit as a separate line altogether. Then the third people came, they are not a bank, they are not a NBFC, but they are a fintech, okay? And they had disrupted the entire thing. So then, as NBFC, we thought that what is that we can do differently so that, and that differently can be done because nowadays, nobody, either you say a cybersecurity or a business, they always say there is nothing called good and bad. If you want to be in the race, you need to do things differently. So what is different? Okay, so what we have done specifically, so when you say use cases, so we understood the customer journey. The first thing what everyone should do, just a kind of, my thought process that let us not have the things just because everyone have it. Okay. Most of the time, either security solutions or any other solutions we select because the others have it. I feel that the contextual is a very critical. So we understood our customer, but my customers are truck drivers. Okay, the solution which fits for other banks or other NBFC may not fit for my flavor of customer. So we understood the entire journey. And when I say journey, a life cycle of any NBFC product, start from the, kind of a marketing, I'll say. Okay, so how to identify the customer, first thing. So our AI journey started over there. So rather than, we took an approach, rather than, selling the products, how I can buy their thoughts.
All right.
Okay, so it's already there in mind and we want to be there before we sell the product. Okay, Rather than selling a product, we thought buy their thoughts directly. Okay, and we want to pitch ourselves. So we started using on the digital front to reach to the right customer before they need us. That is the first part. And then there are definitely different tools and different technologies are available specifically for customer onboarding, for underwriting, for fraud detections and all those things. We have came out with a, if you start using AI and stitching one by one processes, then it doesn't help together. You need to design a product itself so that it helps to enter. So we also, we took a, we thought that the way traditionally Shriram is working for last 40, 50 years may not work. So we need to design our project itself by that digitally. Okay, so we came out with a super app and we have used this AI technology to understand the customer behavior by collecting that data, to pitch the product what you want, and that super app does, it ensures that each level of the life cycle of lending, we take the help of AI, calculate the things, give back to him so that we can streamline his entire journey altogether.
I think, and with that, I'll just go to Girish. So I'm sure, in your industry as well, and earlier you've been in banking, a lot of things are happening proactively. Businesses using AI, as Prashant said, to predict behaviors, to crunch data, maybe forecast, what the person is going to actually act. How risky do you think this is? Can this be compromised by an automated engine, by a human? What would you be really scared about in an AI implementation?
So if you look at what Prashant mentioned right now, correct? There was some bit of a learning which was done basis certain patterns, certain behavior aspects of a customer. Now what is happening? Basically, it's humans who are providing the learning data to the machines. Now, there can be certain prejudices, there can be certain biases which can be built into that decision making and the learning process by itself, right? What is important that while we are concentrating on building and leveraging the artificial intelligence, we need to be very cautious about not introducing those biases, not introducing any kind of a incorrect input, which can completely off track your decision making process. Today, end of the day, I think when we humans look at some information, right, there is something called as a intelligent quotient that we have, where we have some reference data points and we say, okay, while this looks okay or a kind of an BAU stuff to me, but there is still something which fundamentally is not right or not correct here. So we may go back, check a few things. With AI, it won't do it that way. It will just rely on what is the basic inputs that you have given him, what is the learning that the whole algorithm has performed, and basis that it will give you whether you go with an X approach or a Y approach, right? Now, this is where you have a risk. If someone is able to inject a wrong learning or a wrong input, your entire decision-making process will go completely astray. And that is where you need to protect it as well.
Correct, and I think this is a risk that's one is the learning risk that we are all seeing, that the data might not be, or someone might maliciously actually tamper with data, and it could be inadvertently also. Actually, yeah. Right? And the more you use it for business critical purposes, the more risks that emanate, right? But do you think this learning process, today, from an attacks point of view, are you seeing these attacks in the wild, or are you seeing attempts, or is this something that we are talking theory? What's your view?
So I think the session which happened before this session, right, Amol's session, I think it set a wonderful stage for us to talk about it. Look, AI is definitely a great and a wonderful tool. I'm not denying that fact. But what is equally important is the human intelligence, right? While we are dependent on AI, where, as Amol mentioned, right, all these tools, they are becoming extremely chatty. They are becoming extremely data intensive, correct? Now, it's really not possible for a human to dig into that data, extract a meaningful information out of it. But what is the information? What are those signs that you should look for? Is something which humans will have to tell the machines first. If you give them the wrong input, say for example, you have to look at a malicious code behavior, right? I'm saying a malicious code because I'm sure some of you guys will remember, right? The first malicious code which really wreaked havoc was a virus by name Anna Kournikova. I don't know how many of you guys remember it. It was somewhere in 2001. And a lot of guys and a lot of institutions fell victim to it, right? So the malicious code has been around for ages. It's just that it has evolved over a period of time. If we are not able to tell our learning algorithms what are those telltale signs that you need to pick up, you need to stitch those kind of pointers together to help you predict a behavior or to help you build a predictive analysis so that you can be better prepared. I think that is key. This is where the situation is getting a bit difficult because all our tools are becoming extremely chatty, extremely data intensive. Many a times the tools, they give out or they give data which may not really have any security information to it. So building that right algorithm, building that right learning process so that your tools learn things correctly and then help you in the predictive analysis, this is where the challenge is. And this is where I feel human intelligence will continue to play a major role.
Fantastic. And this, Prashant, I also want to ask you, now that, we know that the threats are real, in terms of the bad guys using AI to attack, bad guys trying to manipulate your AI data, what would you rely on, human intelligence or artificial intelligence to protect yourself? What do you think is going to work in the near future? I'm sure you're planning for some of those things.
A straight answer is going to be AI. I'll have a different opinion than what Girish had, but yes, effectively it has to be a combination of those things because as Girish was mentioning, the attack surface is becoming very complex. Okay, so it's like work from anywhere and bring issues from anywhere. So attacks are working from everywhere now. Okay, so I feel that and the attacks have changed now. So. As as I was listening, one of the speaker in one of the other sessions, the two things he mentioned. One is that if you have been attacked today, does that mean that the attack happened today or yesterday? No. So if you remember, the 13 specifically mentioned about the log of 180 days. So they says that nowadays attackers doesn't sit on your machine and attack and they move out. No, they will sit on your machine, they observe your entire network, entire infrastructure, and normally it takes around 150 to 180 days to complete the attack. So we need to have those logs. That is one thing. And second, if I have been attacked by you, does it mean that you are the only one person? No. Actually, the now attack scenario itself has changed. Somebody will just go, he will just found the vulnerabilities in your system. He will keep on a dark web saying that, yes guys, these are few, doors which are open. If somebody wants, use it. Somebody goes, opens the door, he does the next level, then the third person. And the person who actually shoot the bullet, the fourth person, may be a totally different. So all the, this crime is happening across the sectors and different people are doing it. So it is very difficult to just identify the pattern of each attackers. So I feel that the AI, or nowadays people even say that AI, the cold drink company, AI has become a CEO. So why not AI should become our first layer of defense, at least to just understand this complexity and come to some solution, then definitely human intelligence is there to take that call.
Girish is itching to answer this question as well. So, Girish, 1 minute. The time's up, but 1 minute.
That we already are 3 minutes over the time, so apologies for that. But real quick, you got a very valid point, right? AI will stay. But why I am still stressing on human intelligence, this is where you need to stitch things together. Not just looking at the log information, but you also have to integrate and, you got to pull data from your threat intel apparatus, because that is something which is a very key ingredient to a successful AI story. Because you won't have all the data in your logs, right? You also have to look outside and then make sure that you are able to build that larger correlation of data, correct? And this is what will help you in the predictive analysis. But there has to be some human who's sitting behind and really putting his thoughts to how and when to integrate what.
Yeah, keeping everything in autopilot mode will going to be a difficult task. Yeah.
Fantastic. And before we close out, I have a quick poll for both my friends here. So do you think AI as a tool is more potent in the hands of a security professional or hands of a hacker?
It's both ways.
Yes, just one.
In the hand of hackers.
Hacker. Okay. What about you?
Hackers.
Fantastic. So we are in dangerous times. So I think it's all onus on all of us to
If you
innovate.
can give me 10 seconds, I'll tell you why so. Because security professionals, they don't really go deep to understand the whole ecosystem. While hackers, they go extra mile to understand the ecosystem. That's what makes them more successful. I'll stop here.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think it was a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Would you please come together in the center for a group picture? And that was an interesting session. I'm sure in the networking breaks, if we do have our speakers around, you can connect with them offline for any queries or anything that you'd like to engage with them in conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have a trialogue that's happening after this one. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. This is about never trust, always verify, building trust in zero trust. The talking points in this session are going to be our design principles, policy considerations in technology, cloud security and ZT, and much more. For this, may I please invite on stage Mr. Madhur Joshi, CISO, HDB Financial Services, Mr. Amlan Singh, Head of Operations and Customer Services, IIFL Finance, and Mr. Sundareshwar Krishnamurthy, Leader, Cybersecurity, PwC. Ladies and gentlemen, would you be kind enough to put your hands together for our next session of speakers? I'd like to now hand it over to the expertise of the chair.
Okay, good morning to all of you, and thank you so much, for being here. Thank you to my co-panelists for being here as well. So the topic is about zero trust architecture. And I'd like to share a little bit of my experience before, I can get my co-panelists in. PwC in Mumbai has two offices, one in Shivaji Park and the other one in Goregaon. I mostly work out of the Goregaon office because it's closer to my house. And, when you enter the building, there is a Starbucks store, at the entrance. So maybe once a week or a couple of times a week, I pick up a cup of coffee. So last month on one of the days, I got a little bit chatty and I asked the guy at the counter, "Do you like your job?" And he said, "Yes, I love it." I said, "Why?" He said, and he told me this in Hindi, so I'll tell you in English. He said, "Saab, I used to work in this food court behind this building. And the operations manager there every day would tell me 10 things that I did wrong. And now I work here. And my operations manager here tells me 3 things that I do right. And once in a week also tells me how I need to improve. I trust him completely, and therefore I love my job." So that actually drove me to think that trust is actually a very, very potent emotion. And it's really about two individuals and the environment. And, in the human world, this is built over a period of time. Like they say, trust is built over a period of time, and it takes one single instance to kind of break it. But that's in the human world. In the security world, all of this doesn't apply. Because if you have a user or a device or an application with certain properties trying to request for an access, irrespective of whether those properties were same in the previous instances, you still have to go back and, verify. And that, my friends, is really as simple as zero trust architecture. It's based on 3 cardinal principles. The first one is never trust, always verify. The second one is, the whole concept of least privilege, which we have known for a very long time. And the third one is really around assumed breach, which is my personal favorite. Because if you design your whole architecture thinking that and planning for the worst and hope for the best, when a breach happens, you're able to contain the blast radius of that breach. So with that, with that context, I'll probably get my co-panelists in. This is a financial services summit, and financial services, like all of us know, is a regulated sector. Some regulations are prescriptive, some of them are principle-based. So what role does zero trust play in ensuring compliance to these regulations? I'll have both of you answer, but Madhur first, starting with you.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So, as rightly mentioned, the BFSI sector or the financial sector is closely regulated, and we should look the zero trust architecture in achieving that compliance. So, in fact, when we implement the zero trust architecture in spirit, in fact, it meets all the requirement, and in fact, it exceeds the regulatory requirement. So we do not only focus in limiting ourselves to meeting the regulatory requirement, our organization standards, policies, we ensure that it also gets embedded and implemented as part of that. So like we will just talk about the key principles about like ZTNA basically. So it starts from identifications. Like we will ensure that the identification using multi-factor complex password place, like password authorization place is implemented, which will take care of the authentication part. Moving on to that, then like as our earlier panelists talked about, now we are allowing any devices to connect to our network. So ensuring the device posture is checked, the hygiene is checked, the OS, the antivirus of the device, the EDR which has been connected is sanitized as per our standards. Third, what network or what segmentation we are giving the access to. So we can implement micro segmentation to ensure that the access is restricted to the limited network. What application we are giving the access. So we can implement the RBAC access, the least privilege principle has been talked about as per using ZTNA. And the finally is about the data security and the data protection. So if you see as a whole, we end up complying most of the regulatory principles, right from authentication to the data encryption part. So the journey of implementation of ZTNA ensures that the key components within the regulatory framework are adhered. So that's my submission from the regulatory submission perspective.
Hey, thank you. See, there is one technical aspect of it, and one there is a perspective outcome to this entire data security and information security guidelines. As far as regulations are concerned, yes, we have to abide by them, and we have to follow what exactly is laid down principles. But we have to understand that the principles get laid down after an event is occurred. That's when the things are deliberated and principles are set in place. And when it comes to, there is a very interesting metaphor between human principles and data security principles. Humans by default trust. 90% of the time they trust the face value, they trust the communication. Whereas the data security principles guide you never to trust. So a very common round of information that there are people, individuals who will share their passwords, who will compromise their security. So we have to walk a step ahead that even if you compromise security, we lock the devices. Means I talk very specific to IIFL that if I have been assigned a device, I myself, even after having all the IDs and password, won't be able to log into other device using my ID and password. Similarly is for other people. So even if you have shared the password, unless you also share your hardware, the person won't be able to log into the system. So we have to understand the human principles and define our policies in a way that they even overtake the human principles and do not allow the data breach to happen.
Sure. No, I think very, very good thoughts. But overall, I think we are concluding that it does help in compliance from a financial services standpoint. But you know, when it comes to implementation, many organizations have challenges around legacy systems. While all the concepts are great, it just doesn't fly on legacy systems. And some of those legacy systems have very, very strong algorithms, and you can't get rid of them in the organization. So how do you address this challenge?
Right, so that is a good question. So basically, every organization has to go through this journey. So their critical applications, their critical infrastructure is hosted on the legacy infrastructure. As technology is evolving, we need to constantly upgrade and update our existing infrastructure to meet the current security requirements. How we should approach this, which is an altogether a difficult task to achieve. So I guess we should start with having an vulnerability, threat and risk exposure assessment of your own organization first. So this will help you in identifying which are the key areas where we want to implement the security controls. So that should act as a starting point. Then, always, we should have a good understanding of assets which are being used within the organization. And once we have that inventory in place, we should prioritize the critical assets or the critical inventory which we want to focus on. So this criticality can be defined basis 2-3 parameters, like are they exposed to internet? Are they hosting a very critical business sensitive information? Are they actually vulnerable in nature? So those are 3-4 areas which you can use in defining that. So once that is been defined, we need to explore the current controls which are already available in the environment. So maybe it's a sort of micro-segmentation controls which are already available, which can be extended. We should extend any other additional controls which supports basically the zero trust architecture. The key important is we need to identify the dependencies and the challenges which we have, which we'll face when we'll implement this, considering the legacy infrastructure. So we should have those interdependencies clearly documented. We have a robust plan which will include the communications to all stakeholders, because finally they will be impacted. In past, they will be having access to all data. Now we will be restricting them to what only they require to. So there should be a clear communication strategy defined. After that, a thorough UAT and the assessment part should be conducted so that there won't be any impact when we actually go live with the new structure. And finally, the user awareness and the communication stands key. So if we ensure that in spite we have a legacy infrastructure, we'll able to achieve our core security principles.
Thanks, Madhur. I think that's a good segue. When you mentioned about awareness of the workforce, I think that's a good segue, and I'd like to ask you, Amlan, you mentioned about human trust and security trust. In this whole ecosystem, how do you actually build a workforce culture so that your ZTNA program doesn't fail?
See, workforce cultures cannot be built overnight, cannot be built in a short span of time. As we discussed just a previous question about the legacy system, there are legacy mindsets as well that has to change over a period of time. Like to be give my very own example, I still use that 4-digit passcode on my phone, and every time I change my phone, I stick around to the same 4-digit passcode because I refrain or I have that apprehension of moving to 6-digit that I'll have to type in 2 more digits. So these are legacy mindsets that have to come to change, and I understand that finally it's my security. So a lot of awareness, a lot of importance has to be given to training on data security and data threats that we have in today's world, and what kind of repercussions they can bring about if some person just shoulder phishing or shoulder viewing the documents or information can create the amount of, forget about the data breach that will happen if that information goes out into the market, the way your stocks will start to come down, your assets quality will start degrading, your regulatory issues will come to place. So this, according to me, will require a lot of training and a lot of hand-holding to change the legacy mindset as well when it comes to new age data threats and information security threats.
Sure. Thanks, Amlan. Our time is up, and therefore I will restrict it to 30-second answer from both of you. We can't get off the stage without talking about generative AI, so let's make most use of that opportunity. Generative AI and its impact on ZTA first.
So as our previous panelist said, it is most exploited by the hackers. So I have been attending a session organized by regulator in last month, and in 3 minutes, the presenter has demonstrated that they have selected any random website which has the CAPTCHA controls and everything, and they bypass that within 3 minutes. So the tools are made this so simple that we have to put a lot of efforts to ensuring those controls are built. So right from password guessing to CAPTCHA bypasses to sophisticated phishing attacks. So it creates a so personalized phishing email that for a normal hacker will take a lot of time. So it is just on a click of a button. So right from all these controls which we have to implement, the ZTNA will ensure that it implement the controls at various levels, which will ensure that irrespective the exploit of AI, which will lead to a lot of security challenges, at least one of these layer we will able to secure our infrastructure.
Sure. Amlan?
Yeah, I would second the thought. As I said, and most of the panelists over here who have been there previously have commented that this tool is more user-friendly for the bad guy than for the good guy. So when the bad guys are so active on certain things, so we might have to preempt some. Currently, our entire framework works on, okay, this is the threat which is identified and we have to counter this threat. So we maybe in due course, we have to start thinking that this is a probable threat that may happen, and we design our frameworks in such a way that, okay, we avoid that probable kind of a threat.
Sure. So thank you very much, Madhur. Thank you, Amlan. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the end of this panel, and we are seriously over time. So if there are any questions, I guess we are all here, so we can chat up. But thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Please come together for a group picture. Once again, thank you for taking the time out and joining us for this session. Some great insights have been shared, and I'm sure that a lot of